Hi.
Hello.
How's it going?
Oh, it's going.
Shanna, are you with us?
We are all in this.
Okay.
Are Kaylee, are you single parenting today or solo parenting today, or do you
My
have a
husband is upstairs with the kids,
okay,
so
good.
they may pop
Awesome.
out at the store at any point. We will see.
So obviously our audience is not new to the fact that we all have kids, and our guest speakers will have kids too because we interview moms. So for anyone that's listening today, we have a few of us are solo parenting, and then we have some kids upstairs. So this may be a very interesting conversation. So we'll see how it goes. We'll try to get through as much as we can uninterrupted. But welcome back to the Moms and Moms podcast. We are a podcast from moms chasing goals through all seasons of life. I'm Shanna.
I'm Olivia.
And then we have a guest.
I'm Kaylee.
We're so excited. We'll dive into her intro here in a second. But we bring you training tips, mom plus expert interviews, and the kind of best friend banter that makes you feel like you're on a run with us. Whether it's your first 5K, your next marathon, or a stroller tempo, we've got your miles and your sanity. We appreciate it if you can rate, subscribe, and share our podcast with another fellow mama.
Good job on that.
You did it! I'm impressed you were over there like,
I was like, be mature.
yeah.
You did great. I was waiting for my moment now. So
Yeah.
I want to slide in at the perfect time. I've got our everyday hero shout out, and you guys are gonna love this one. It is her handle is Running for the Love of Fit, and her name is Linda Goodchild, and this is what she has written in. She ran an ultra. Oh, excuse me. Won an ultra at 18 weeks pregnant. She's incredible. Ran 10 marathons in 10 days, and she is a mom of 4. She ran the 100-kilometer race to the King. Is that, I don't know if that's the name of it.
Yeah.
To the King in 2025, and 50-mile triple trail ultra in 2024. A little more backstory. She got into running casually as a 15-year-old and got into longer distances in her late 20s. Her and her husband quit their jobs before kids and traveled all over the world, where she ran many races in five different countries. New Zealand's 60-kilometer ultra was the race she ran and won at 18 weeks pregnant. She ran the London Marathon at 6 months pregnant with her 4th child. Her marathon progression is she went from being a 4.5-hour marathoner when she was 30 years old, and now last year as a 40-year-old, she has accomplished a 2:58. That is
This is what I'm talking about.
so many layers, like so many miles, ran while pregnant, and her
6
and her
months
husband.
pregnant. There's
Yeah.
another one.
Yes. We were just talking on the or before we started recording that like Shanna went and ran a half marathon pregnant this morning, or I can just say you ran a half marathon. And
Yeah.
sorry, I don't know why I included that. Well, I guess if anybody listens to this in a year, then it gives some backstory. Anyways, so she was saying that she was talking to some people at the start, and they were mentioning that they had ran, or one of them had ran Boston while they were 30 weeks pregnant. We were just talking about how many people she's bumping into lately that have ran so far into their pregnancy, and at significant distances as well. Because, I mean, like, I can relate to, like, going and hopping on the treadmill for a quick little workout, and get my body moving, but running a marathon while being 30 weeks pregnant, or, like, this story is so incredible. It's so layered. Her and her husband quitting their jobs, traveling the
Yeah.
world, running these races in other countries and being able to experience that. So cool. Then adding pregnancy on top of it, and that she went sub 3 as a 40-year-old is incredible. I mean, it's just so cool.
It's so rad. Like, it's so cool to see just the commonality. Like, it's becoming so common for women to be fast in their late 30s to early 40s and beyond. Whereas, like, I feel like before it was, like, kind of, like, taboo to hear that. But I feel like all these women are just coming out of the woodworks like, here I am. I'm 40-something, and I'm running the fastest I've ever had. And it's so, so inspiring. Like, I think it just, like, puts a fire underneath all of us. And not even so much the time relation, because that's relevant to the person. But, like, outside of that factor, just the fact that people are getting faster, I think it's I don't know. I like messaged her and I was like, was this because you were done having kids and like you didn't have that break of like pregnancy, postpartum, you know? And she was like, honestly, I quit my job to stay home with my kids full time. And that was really hard identity wise. And so she was like, I just leaned into that stay at home mom life. And then I needed something for myself. And so I clinged to running. And that's when I really took it seriously. And it's crazy. Like, look how fast she, like a 4.5 marathoner to a 2:58. That's huge.
Yeah, that is
Huge.
so incredible. I think so many of us can relate to that identity shift when you become a
Yeah.
stay-at-home mom, and that running is like just a very accessible thing that you can do in adulthood with at a competitive level. Like the accessibility of it is so wonderful. And I don't know enough about like if I was to feel the same way about like tennis or something, you know, like maybe it is, but I feel like this is the most accessible, and like just participation wise it's just so welcoming, and so that's really incredible. I feel like that's super relatable for a lot of people.
It's so true. Well, you brought up a good point, Olivia, when we were talking. You said it's so interesting that running allows recreational people to do it. And like you said, in any other sport at a like a high caliber, like you couldn't toe the line or you couldn't play a game with the
Mhm.
pros. Like you
Yes.
wouldn't be on the same start line. And that hit me so hard in our conversation when you told me that, because I was like,
Mhm.
how freaking awesome is
Mhm.
that? Like it really is. Like it really is accessible to everybody. And like we should be rallying behind that. We should be so
Yeah.
happy about like the opportunity to be able to start the same race as these people that are so incredibly
Yeah.
fast, but also like have the same experience of like success and
Mhm.
like accomplishment when we cross our 26.2, even if it's not 2:12 or sub 2 or 2 hours or anything, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
crazy. It's pretty cool.
I know. I think about that all the time because, you know, I even the other day someone was like, "Well, it was about how many miles I ran to go sub 3 or it was my mileage post, so all of my marathons." And someone was like, "Well, you know, there's a reason that pros are running 100 miles per week." And I was like, "There's such a difference though between just, you know, going sub 3 and then pros who are
Yeah.
females are 224, 222, things like that." I was like, "There's a huge difference between that." But also that we have the same experience when we're out there on the start line. Like when like at Chicago when the pros started and then I started 10 minutes later, I was like, that's the craziest thing to think about, that these people who are going to finish so fast and that I look up to so much are just 10 minutes ahead of me like at that start in that corral. It's such a weird thing because, you know, I'm thinking like if my son is playing basketball, like he's not gonna go and be on a court right next to LeBron. I don't. That's only about. I know, but that's like what I'm saying. You know, like that's not a thing.
It's
So
so
anyway,
true.
I like just that we get to taste that bit of elite sport essentially, even as amateur runners, which is so cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've
it
never
really,
thought
really
of it like that. So that like really puts it into perspective.
Yeah, it does, doesn't
It,
it?
like, makes you appreciate it more. Like, it makes you
Yeah.
just so grateful that we are like, because I think there's a lot, like, on social media, especially lately, I feel like there's a lot of, like, elitism, and then there's, like, here's the other side, and then there's the backpack, right? There's, like, these 3 categories, and I feel like there's a lot of, like, sometimes a lot of division can come up in the sport, and you're like, "No, we're all out there, like, trying to do the best we can," you know? And
Yeah.
it's all like, you know, even if you don't PR that day, like that can still be a very proud moment day for you, depending on what you had to fight through those miles, right? And I just think it's such a like relatable feeling we can all discuss because we've all can kind of relate in our own ways, like in our own journeys of our races. But
Yeah. I
yeah.
used to think like when, you know, when they interview pros at the finish line and they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, what are you thinking about?" And they're like, "You know, I'm just so inspired by the people that are still out there running and they're going to finish in 5 hours and 6 hours." And I was always like, I feel like that's a little bit patronizing. But then I was like, "You know what? They probably are because
Yeah.
they are aware that it's the same 26.2 miles where like somebody who is like running a 450 or 5 hour, they're just not getting that same recognition where like an elite runner is able to see that because they just went through that. So they are probably feeling extremely inspired by that and thinking like, oh my gosh, what they're doing actually is so much harder, even though
Yeah.
it's the same distance, you know? So I
Yeah,
think
like
about that perspective a lot.
double time on feet.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I hit a certain point in my threshold of time on feet and I'm like, I am done.
Yeah.
My body is done. It's ready to walk. And so I think about these people that are out there for as long as they are, and it's like they're holding a pretty similar heart rate effort for
Mhm.
5 hours.
Yeah.
The
Mhm.
mental toughness you have to be able to do that is like beyond me. It's no wonder a lot of these people even go into ultra because their body is like so equipped to handling that higher intensity for a long duration
Mhm.
versus some of us who can only handle a short amount of time.
Kaylee, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Just, my kids got their first haircuts today, so that was a big deal. So our
Cute.
8-month-old and our 2.5-year-old.
Oh,
But other than that, just started week 2 of kind of marathon training. I say kind of because I've been dealing with some knee issues. So the goal is
no.
the marathon in May, but we'll kind of see if my knee cooperates. But yeah, just kind of have started that, so that's been really fun.
That's exciting. Oh my gosh.
How has that transition been? Has anything drastically changed in your training so far? Is it pretty leveled going up?
Yeah, it's been pretty level. The mileage hasn't gotten too crazy yet. It's definitely more mileage than it was when I was training for my half in October, but it's been a good kind of slow build so far. And so I think that's been helpful. It hasn't been like kind of right into a ton of miles each week, but even seeing like 25, 30 miles, I haven't seen numbers like that in quite a few
Yeah.
months as I was kind of like in between races. So being able to see that has been cool. But I am looking ahead in the plan and seeing like 18 miles, 19 miles, and I'm like, okay, those are big numbers. So I think it'll be very different when we get there, but for now it feels steady.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will these be your first long runs, in those digits?
Yeah, I have not gone farther than the half marathon distance ever. So
Yeah.
even like just a little bit past that 13 miles will be a PR. But I think I'm gonna go into it with that mindset on those days of just like, this is a PR. It's not that it's 19 miles, it's a lot of miles. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's gonna just be exciting to get to that point and to be able to train those numbers since I haven't ever touched them before.
That's so exciting. I remember for me, it was just in 2023 that I hit those
Hmm.
numbers for the first time ever in my running career, and I remember crossing, 15 miles and being like, "I just did that." I ran for 2 hours, and I was
Yeah.
so proud of myself, and my coach was like, "Yep, good job." Like, he's like a seasoned marathoner, and I just was like, "I ran 18 miles and I'm alive still." Like,
Yes.
it's
It's
so
so
crazy.
true. Yeah, it's crazy to think. Like, I feel like when I got to the end of the half marathon, I was like, this is a lot of miles. And then the half marathon that I did in October, you run with most of the folks in the marathon for a lot
Oh,
of the
that's so
race before they veer off. And so to kind of like see them going one way, I'm like, they're only like halfway done with this. Like, that is so wild to think about.
It really is. It's like a bittersweet, once you run your first marathon and then you go back to the half, it's a bittersweet moment where you're like, I am so glad I'm not doing 26.2. That's how I felt today. And then there's the other part of you that's like, oh, I kind of miss it.
Yeah, like, let me just go that way with the
Yeah.
full side.
That's so true. It's so funny, like, when you do back-to-back marathon blocks, like, I I got so used to running 18, 20 miles every Saturday was, like, 18, 19, 20, 18, 19, 20, and so, I would come home and, like, nobody was really impressed by it anymore. My husband was pretty
Yeah.
used to it, like and I remember, like, I ran from my house to like, it was the other side of town, and it was the farmer's market,
All
and
of
we
St. George.
all of St. George, literally, like, it's not even 20 miles wide, so I, like, circles. I just remember going to the farmer's market, and my husband's friend was there, and I was like, "Hold on, I'm at, like, 19.98." I'm just doing a circle, and he was like, "So you just ran 20 miles?" And I was like, "Yeah." And just, like, having someone be excited about that, I did that, and then I came to the farmer's market, and now I'm gonna be a mom, versus, like, just being around people that are really used to it, because I was like, "Oh, it is exciting to be excited about it again." Because, like, to me, I go the whole day being like in, like, the grocery store, like, "Nobody knows I ran 20 miles
Yeah.
before I came here."
Mhm.
So, yeah, just, like, that's, like, the nice thing about being around people that don't marathon, is, like, you
It's
can
so true.
everything you do is impressive.
I feel like at some point the spouse like support or like not even
Mhm.
support, just like the awe factor just like
Yeah,
decreases the more
it
you
does.
do them.
Yeah.
Because like I'm pregnant, right? And I'm training for this marathon and I come back after doing 20 miles and we do the baton pass off. My husband goes to work
Mhm.
and and I take over the kids the rest of the day and I'm just like waddling into the house and he's just like, I was like, I hurt so bad. And he's like, you're good. He's like, my wife that ran 20 miles, you'll be just fine. And I was
Yeah.
like, I ran 20 miles.
No, it's so true. I, like, can't use it as an excuse or anything anymore. He's like,
I know.
"Yeah, that's a regular day for you." Or, like, even Tuesday workouts that are bigger,
Yeah.
and it's like, yeah, it sounds like a regular Tuesday. I don't know. I'm like,
I know.
Yeah.
"No, I am incapable of doing the laundry right now." Like, you don't
Exactly.
understand. And it's like, "Well, you've been doing this forever, shouldn't you be used to it?" Like, he's definitely more impressed that I, like, if I go and lift a weight now. He's like, "Wow, you're actually doing that now."
That's so
No,
funny.
that's so funny. So
Yeah,
Olivia, you're training for a half right now. Which one are you training for?
for the Rock and Roll Vegas. I've bonked it
Yeah.
twice, so let's hope that I don't bonk it this time.
No. I
Yeah.
think last time we went as, like, a girls' trip, so it kinda ended up being, like, poor fueling the day before. We
Yes.
walked everywhere. I mean,
Yeah,
that
we
day
did.
we walked everywhere, that
Yeah.
because it's not till, like, in the like, later evening,
Yep,
and so it's, like,
exactly.
kind of like a sucky time, but I'm excited for you. I can't wait to
I
see what you
know.
put out.
I hope it goes more smooth. It's always like it's crazy, crazy fun. And it's like
Yeah.
it's not like marathon bonk where it's like this wall and you're miserable because I don't know. It's always been at like mile 10 and 11 where it's like, oh my gosh, oh, we're about to experience the longest miles 10 and 11, but it's really cool race. So it really makes up for that like pain cave, I think. So that 4:30 start time though,
I
I'm
know.
that one's
4:30.
4:30.
Yeah,
It's just
isn't
like
that crazy?
Wow.
afternoon. So, yeah,
Yeah.
like I'm gonna go and do my speed workout tonight, I think, just so that I can get used to it just every once in a while
Smart.
and just so that it's not such a like jolt to try to run fast paces at 4:30 in the
Yeah.
afternoon. But just
Yeah.
every once in a while I'll do that. So, but it's such a fun race and it's super flat, which is really nice. And
Yes.
it's very unique experience to be able to run down the strip when it's actually shut down. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
yeah.
cool.
Mm.
It'll be a cool
Really fun.
experience.
Super fun.
Well, should we roll into her bio?
Yeah, let's do
Introduce
it.
our guest over here. We got a lot to talk about. So, okay, so it says, today on Miles with Moms, we're welcoming Kaylee, a mom whose running journey began in an unexpected season in 2020 at the height of COVID. Which I think Olivia, weren't you a COVID runner?
Kinda. Yeah.
Yeah, so you guys have
I
some relatability there for a second. Kaylee sent a simple but ambitious goal to run 10 consecutive miles. Despite having very little running experience at the time, what started as a way to fill long days quickly became something much more. After reaching that goal, Kaylee signed up for her first half marathon, running it virtually on the trails near her home. Crossing the 13.1 miles sparked a passion that would shape the next several years of her life. She went on to complete 2 more half marathons in 2021 and 2022 before stepping away from running during her pregnancies. Following a C-section and receiving medical clearance to return to exercise in May of 2025, Kaylee found her way back to running and back to herself. The post run feeling, the early morning miles, and the joy of seeing her daughter and son waiting at the finish line have become powerful reminders of why she runs. Kaylee shares how running has helped her feel stronger, more grounded, and more present as a wife, mom, daughter, and friend. We're so excited to have Kaylee on the podcast to talk about postpartum recovery, rediscovering movement, and the quiet power chasing goals in motherhood.
Amazing. All right. So it started in 2020, a virtual half. That's so crazy. It's so funny because I feel like before 2020, nobody talked about doing virtual halves. Like it just really wasn't a thing. And I mean, it's totally different, like race experience. And it takes, I feel like, so much more mental toughness to go and do something like that. So, but it started with those 10 consecutive miles. So what sparked that in the first place?
Yeah, so prior to COVID and everything shutting down, my husband, who at the time was my boyfriend, we were super big into the gym, doing some powerlifting, like more strength training kind of things. And then everything shut down. And so the trail was right outside of our house and we just kind of started running. There was no plans behind it. We were just like running random miles each day. But just like a good way to kind of get that energy out and stay active when everything was shut down here in Connecticut. So we did that. And then I randomly was just kind of like, I've never run 10 miles consecutively. I think the highest at that time had maybe been like 8 a couple of years prior. So we set out to do it on a Saturday a couple weeks later. So we did a little bit of training leading up to it. But really, the day that we went out and did the 10, like I will always remember hitting the 10 on my watch and like I literally just started crying and I was like, I can't believe I just did that. Like 10 miles. That's so crazy. Um, and I don't even remember what the pace was, but like none of that really mattered at the time. It was just like, okay, we just did 10. Like that was so cool to finally hit double digits. And from there was where the virtual half then came into play because that was I want to say maybe a month after we did the 10 miles. We saw about it online and it was to raise money for the frontline workers who were working kind of during the COVID pandemic at its height of it. So we started to do that, trained a little bit more, but again, like no concrete training plan. Like looking back, knowing what I know now, I'm like, we were just like out there doing like whatever we wanted, whatever felt good. Um, but so then that's when we ended up doing that virtual half just a couple weeks later. But I would say, I'm sorry, my AirPod keeps falling out of my ear. I would say that's when the love for running like really kind of started. And so it's crazy to think now that that was 6 years ago that that happened.
Yeah. 6 years. That is wild.
Yeah.
So was your husband a runner too, or are you kind of both just like navigating into this like running scene because of the gyms being shut?
He was a little bit of a runner beforehand. When we first met, he was in half marathon training. So he was more of a runner than I was at that point. So I kind of leaned on him in terms of
Yeah.
like, okay, let's do this. But yeah, I would say out of the two of us, he was more of the runner than I was. So he had taken a little bit of a break from it. But then when I kind of set out to do that goal, that was something that we started to do together.
I love that. Like, I love that you had the support, like, of your partner at this time to just like carry you through and like was like, oh, okay, like I've done a half marathon, but I'm gonna bring you along to 10 miles. And like it is a big deal. 10, like that double digits, like is
Mm-hmm.
huge, like huge deal. So I think that's so cool that like you guys were able to like experience that together and have those memories. And this was before you had any kids, right? Or did you have
Yeah, so
kids?
we had our daughter in 2023. So yeah, this was
Okay,
like we
yeah.
weren't even engaged yet. Like
Oh,
we were
okay.
just like dating and like yeah, no really other responsibilities at the
Yeah.
time. So we had some extra time on our hands.
No, I think that's awesome that you guys have memories like that together before like going into like having children and things like that because it can kind of separate you a little bit. Just life gets busy, but I love that you
Hmm.
guys have like those like beginning memories together and that like you crossed your first double digit run with your spouse now. Like that's so
Yeah.
cool. That's so cool.
Yeah. No, it's a really great memory.
That's so awesome. With your virtual half, did it feel like was it super exciting to go out and try, or did it feel like kind of a training run? Like the accomplishment of doing it, like did it feel amazing? Because you can probably compare it now, obviously, because even before you had kids, you had completed multiple halves. So what did that feel like the first time that you finished your 13.1?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like at that time, all I knew was the virtual running, the
Yeah.
virtual half marathon. And so we had gotten like shirts made. We got the bibs, like we literally pinned the bibs to our shirts on this trail. Like people were probably like, what are these people doing? Um, but like we set out a time and we had some of our close friends and family come to like the end of the trail where we were going to finish. So it kind of felt like a finish line. But I think once we hit that 13.1, I was like, okay, like we just did that. And like, even though it was only
Yeah.
3 miles more than the 10 we had just done, like to say I did a half marathon was like, okay, this is like so cool. Um,
Mhm.
I would say that's where like the running bug like really started for me. But
Yeah.
now looking back, it's like I can't even compare the feelings from that to how like race day now feels and like all the people and the excitement and everything. But in that moment, I was like, this is like the coolest thing that I've ever done. So
Yeah. No, I
yeah.
definitely get it. And honestly, COVID times were weird, so I promise that was not the weirdest thing that was going on. I promise you
Yeah.
putting bibs on a trail? Not that weird.
Yeah,
Okay.
people were pretty
Weird things
normal.
though. Yeah. Yeah. People wiping down their groceries? Yeah. Not
Yep.
that weird though.
Yeah. Yeah. It was such a wild time.
Yeah, exactly. We have fun reminiscing about that. But yeah, when you said that, I'm like, I wouldn't even worry about that part of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
It's
love
just it's so fun to hear like how many people became runners in COVID. Like in such a dark, I feel like a dark time. I feel like for a lot of people, it was also such a bright moment for a lot of people too. Like it reclaimed a lot of people's health. It got them back on a habit. I don't know if it was necessarily so much like because everything was shut down or maybe they were brought back home and so they just had a little bit more flexibility or what. I don't know what it was, but there are so many stories of people in that COVID era that picked up running for the first time and now are doing what you're doing, training for a marathon. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it was like truly unless you had a home gym, which at that time, like
Yeah.
even just trying to buy like a set of weights, they were like
It's
all
so
sold
true.
out everywhere. So I was like,
Oh,
running is
yeah.
literally our only option right now.
Yeah. The only accessible thing to do. I'm curious, what about that distance, the 13.1? Like, did you ever dabble into 5Ks, 10Ks, anything shorter, or were you just like straight 10-mile and then you're like, okay, well, 10 miles, 3.1, that's all I need to do a half marathon. Was that just your mind like instantly just into the distance scene?
Yeah, I mean, I had done a couple of 5Ks prior to COVID, like quite a few years before that. And since then, there's a couple of 5Ks in our town that they do every year. So I run it with my husband and my dad, which is a really fun memory. But I think once I hit that 10, like just the thought of doing like, okay, 13.1, like, and I know that you guys have talked about it so much on the podcast, but now like a 5K is so much harder for me to do than that half marathon distance because like it really is like, okay, like we are going all out for 3 miles and like it's so tough mentally to like get yourself in that mindset when you've been doing those longer distance runs. But um the 5K distance is still fun for me. Like I enjoy doing it, but I think just something about like the accomplishment of hitting that 13.1 because I feel like with the 5K you like just start to get in your groove and then it's like, okay, like we're done. We hit our mileage and that's it. So I think that doing like the 10 miles and the half marathon, like you're able to kind of like keep going once you get to that point and get into a rhythm. So that's where I feel like that kind of love for it came from. But I still will do a 5K when they come up.
That's cool.
That's all.
Did you play any sports in the past, like growing up? Like what's your history with like sports and stuff?
Yeah, so I did cheerleading for most of my life. And so I think a lot of it, like the feeling of competition and like going out on the competition floor is very much similar now to like a race day morning and the excitement of that. Um, but I did cheerleading from 7th grade through to college, and then I coached for a couple of years after at the high school and collegiate level. So that has been a big part of my life. And I think once that stopped, because I stopped coaching right before I had my daughter, I think that's also where running really came back into my life because I needed to fill almost like that void of competition, even at the coaching level. Like I still felt those feelings when we were going on to the competition mat. So being able to then translate that into running, but other than having to do running for like conditioning, I was not a runner growing up at all. It was really just cheerleading.
That's awesome. Yeah, I definitely think that's super relatable for so many people because when you do something for so long, yeah, it's interwoven into who you are. That's what makes like an interest and a hobby and a passion very different, you know? And like as we get older, it's like nobody really prepares us that one day you will probably have to figure out how to shift that passion into something else. And like it's a tool that we really do need. And I think for so many people, running has filled that because we do get that competition and like we were talking about earlier, like we do get to experience this elite level sport, but on our own terms and on our own timeline now, which is so amazing. And I'm sure for cheer, like you always felt that like what does that timeline look like of like how long is it going to be in your life, you know? And I love that you were able to find something to fill that competitive void because it's so relatable for so many people, especially like child
Hmm.
athletes or teenage
Yeah.
athletes and stuff. But
Yeah.
did you feel like when you finished that first half marathon, that is that like what ignited like a passion for running, do you think? Or did that come a little bit later when it felt like maybe, like, after you had kids?
I would say it started to put the fire in, like, just a little bit, but, after COVID was kind of over, and things kind of returned to a little bit of normalcy, my husband and I started doing CrossFit, and
Mhm.
so that kind of took a front seat for a little bit. I was still doing, both of my other half marathons, I was actively doing CrossFit while I was training for them, but anytime there was a workout that had running in it, I was like, this is my favorite thing. Like I'm thriving right now. And so it was always kind of there. But I think just getting married in 2022, having my daughter in 2023, like it just kind of shifted a little bit. And then after we had our daughter, we switched to like at home workouts just because we couldn't get to CrossFit in the morning anymore. So that took more of a front seat with like getting a Peloton bike and cycling and whatnot. But it was really after I got pregnant with my son and like leading up to his due date that like I started to think in my mind, like once I have him, like I really kind of want to get back into running. Like I really think that that would be something that would be good to get back into after now having 2 kids. Like, I was kind of over the cycling at that point, like, wanted something a little bit more, couldn't do a lot of the high intensity workouts, just how my pregnancy went with him, so I was, like, itching to just, like, get out and do something that, like, made me out of breath and just, like, a little bit of what that feeling of running does, and so that's when it started to really kind of fuel that fire, and then now since then, so probably the last year or so, it's been, like, full-fledged, this is what we're doing.
So you talked about like C-section. So I'm curious before we hop into that season of life and kind of dabbling into like what that was like to recover from because that's a huge one. We have a lot of people that have gone through that and recovery from a C-section versus vaginally is two different worlds. And so I'm curious, like during your pregnancy, so you mentioned cycling. Was that your main focus of like aerobic, like fitness? Like, was that your main priority during the time of both your pregnancies, or was this something that you did like a little bit of running still throughout? And then what was your pregnancy like? Like, what was it high risk? Was it? I'm just curious, like to walk us through like that experience. So what that was like for you.
Yeah, so with my daughter, I did CrossFit all the way up until like the day before my due date with her. But based on the time that I found out I was pregnant, it was like through the winter because I had her in July. So by the time that we were getting back into those running kind of workouts at CrossFit, was already getting well into that third trimester. And so I tried to run for some of them and I was like, oh no, like this is not like I have not been doing this enough. And so it was very low when I'm sorry, it just fell out again. It was very low when I was pregnant with her in terms of running. But I was still able to do a lot of the CrossFit movements and the strength aspect of it and just kind of subbed in the bike here and there. And then after I had her, I was running every couple of weeks, nothing crazy, just kind of like to keep some miles on and just to see. But I had a vaginal delivery with my daughter. And so the recovery process in terms of getting back into running definitely was a little bit harder just because of what my body had gone through. And so at that point, I switched more into the cycling, strength training, like kind of getting into that rhythm at home. So then we were pregnant with my son. My daughter had turned 1 July of 2024. We found out we were pregnant with my son in September. And I was doing still like the same, just like cycling, low impact cardio, weight training, but for whatever reason, my body just had a little bit of a harder time working out while I was pregnant with him. I was still able to do something almost every day that I was pregnant, just because like mentally I really needed just to like have that movement and do something. But it did look different. It wasn't CrossFit. It wasn't the intensity level that I was with my daughter. But then was still able to go all the way through. My pregnancy was not high risk. We did not even know. So my son was breech. We did not know that he was breech until I want to say it was my 30-week appointment. They did an ultrasound and they were like, "Oh, like this baby is heads up," and I was like, "Okay." So that was something new to navigate, but they were kind of like, "We're not really concerned about it until you hit like the 33-week mark," and so we kind of let it go. I mean, I was thinking about it like literally every day, just because thinking about a C-section was so different than my delivery with my daughter, like two very different ends. And so 33 weeks came, he was still very much heads up. And so there was a couple of different options. We tried to do the external cephalic version. So we tried to flip him, and the doctor got him like halfway and he flipped right back. And they were like, "We're not going to push it." Like he was just like very comfortable in that position. And so that was a week before I ended up having him that we did that, and it like started to actually cause some contractions. And so then a week later, we went to the doctor and they were like, "Yeah, like you're having this baby today." He was still heads up, and so then we went into the C-section like that afternoon.
Wow, how many weeks were you at that time?
I was 38 and a half.
Okay, wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've seen I've only seen like videos of that maneuver. I mean, of course
Yeah.
you're gonna do anything, right? Especially after you've had a baby vaginally, you're like, "Oh, I'll just
Mhm.
do it again," and sometimes they just don't wanna flip, but
Yeah, we went back and forth on it if we were gonna do the ECV, if it was right for us. We met with a doctor who was going to do it, and he was like, "You are a good candidate for it." But I think the biggest thing, because obviously I was all over Google, like Googling all of the things.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, I don't know, like my pain tolerance is not very high. Like I don't know if I can do this." And a lot of people were like, my doctor really kind of pushed it. And so when we met with the doctor who would be doing it, he said, like, "I'm not like, if he doesn't want to flip, like, we're not going to keep doing it. Like, I'll try it. And if he's not moving, like, we're just going to stop." And so I just kind of, after having conversations with my husband, we said, let's just try it. Because I think if we didn't try it, we would have been wondering if it would have worked. And so it wasn't as painful as I thought it was going to be, like, still not comfortable, but, even though it didn't work, I am glad that we tried it because I think we would have been wondering if it would have worked or not. But he was meant to be a C-section baby, and that's how he came, so
I love that you said that. That is so true. My friend, she had that procedure done. That's the only reason I was watching videos about it.
Yeah.
And she her baby flipped and she still ended up having a C-section. And that's just
Wow.
yeah.
some babies are just meant to come out that way. But yeah, I'm just so curious, like your recovery from a C-section. I don't have any experience with it. So can you just walk us through a little bit of what that looked like? Was it an emergency C-section or were you able to schedule and plan ahead for it a little bit?
Yeah, so we had planned to do it the following week, but they can't schedule it at the hospital I was delivering at until you have to be 39 weeks in order to do it, because everything else in terms of my pregnancy was relatively healthy, so there really wasn't a rush. Um, but me wanting to kind of have a plan in place was stressed about that. And so we were going to the doctor at that point. I was going every week, and then when we went the week before, so my 37-week appointment, my doctor was like, I'm not going to put you on bed rest, but this baby is like very low. And I'll be surprised if you make it to the 39, 40 week mark. And so got through a couple more days. We did the ECV and whatnot. And at my 38-week appointment, that was Monday, she was like, he's still really low, like just kind of lay low, like
Yeah.
until the next couple of days. And so then that Thursday, I was starting to have some contractions, and I called the doctor and I was like, can I just come in and get checked and just to see if his position has changed? So that's when we went, and she was like, I'm just going to send you over. Like, there's no way you're going to make it because that C-section had roughly been scheduled for the following Friday, so it was going to be almost a week later. And she was like, "There's no way that you're gonna still be pregnant in a week. Like this baby is coming." Which we're glad it worked out that way because I was at a 2 when we were at the doctor, and then when we got to the hospital, I was already at a 4. So it really kind of progressed like pretty quickly. But we got to the hospital around 11 a.m. and we didn't have him until 4:30 that afternoon, and so it was kind of like a chill time, just waiting there to go back for the C-section because there was others that were scheduled to go. Um, but from a recovery standpoint, I mean, we were in the hospital. I had him Thursday afternoon. We came home Saturday afternoon. The procedure itself was not what I expected it to be. My cousin is a labor and delivery nurse at the hospital I delivered at, and she was in the OR with me. And then obviously my husband was there, and so she kind of gave me like the rundown. She's like, it's going to be really bright lights in there when we get in there because you like walk yourself into the delivery room, which was like so crazy. There's like people all over the place, and I was just like, "Hi, I'm just like here to have my C-section." And so thankfully, like everything was very relaxed. Like she explained who everyone was, why there was going to be so many people in there, and the how quick you get to baby during like I went in there. I think they started at 4:20, and he was born at 4:26. Like it is a super
Wow.
quick time. Like the anesthesiologist kept saying to me, he was like, "We're almost to baby. We're almost to baby," and I'm like, "Okay." And then he was there, and it was just like so fast how it happened. It's really like after when they are like finishing that's the longer part, but like baby's here, and so it really was like I don't even know what's going on. Like do what you need to do. Um, but then I think the hospital stay itself was not horrible. There was a couple of things that I was like not anticipating recovery wise, like the feeling of the spinal wearing off was weird and like that type of thing, but it was very much like every couple of hours, like stay on top of the pain meds. And like, because I knew I was having the C-section for basically 10 weeks at that point, I had done a lot of research in terms of how to make the recovery as easy as possible. And so everyone said, like, the second you can get up and walk, like, start walking. And so once they said that, like, I was like doing laps down, very slow laps down the hallway in the hospital just to like get my body moving. But just staying on top of the pain meds was like the biggest thing. And everyone that I had talked to who had a C-section said like the scar will start to hurt when like it's time to take your meds again. So it was almost like a reminder, like, okay, it's been 6 hours, like I can feel the scar now, like it's time to take these pain meds. But staying on top of that really was so helpful. Like I think my general overall thoughts on the C-section, I was very nervous going into it because it was just so different. But truly, it was not horrible at all. I'm very lucky that I had the delivery that I did and that everything went smoothly because I know everyone's experience is not that. Um, but I think staying on top of the pain meds and just like moving around as much as I could in those first few days was really, really helpful in terms of that recovery.
I can't even, like I can't even wrap my mind around having to go through something like that. Like, just watching a C-section and what happens and like the recovery of that, like multiple layers, like that you're cut through. I just am like, I will give a unmedicated vaginal birth to 20 more children before I ever have to sign up for that. I just like, I think it's so incredible, like moms that have to go through that. I'm curious with like the window as far as like when you started exercising vaginally and then when you started exercising C-section wise, and even just like you talked about pain tolerance, which I really appreciate you saying and like mentioning, like, hey, it's okay to stay on top of the pain meds. I think us as women, we're naturally just like, we'll fight and do anything for our kids. We go in that like survival mode to like be there and be present for them, that we kind of put ourselves last. And like we have to like grit through things. And it's like, why? But why? Like that's why modern medicine is a thing. Like take advantage of it, you know? So I love that you mentioned that you were on top of your pain meds. You did your research going into it. You felt pretty prepared for the most part. It sounds like even if
Mhm.
it was that day, you're like, oh, well, we're going to go do C-section right now, which is so crazy because I can't tell you how much anxiety that gives me just hearing that. I'm like, oh my gosh, like they're going to put you on a table and now they're going to cut you open. Like baby's here in 6 minutes. Like, holy crap, that's crazy.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm curious, like, what the recovery looked like between your vaginal birth, like when you were able to really start moving and feeling like a little bit more put together versus like
Mhm.
C-section and when you really started feeling like you're starting to come to yourself again.
Yeah, I mean, both times I waited to get clearance from the doctor, so I think it was that 6-week checkup, um, that they both had said, like, for the C-section, you have to go back at 2 weeks postpartum just to get the scar checked out, which was a little bit different, but at that point, they were like, "You really should only be walking short distances," and at up until then, like, those first 2 weeks, I really was not doing a lot of walking, like, simple stuff, moving from room to room in the house, but I really wanted to wait until the doctor had said it was okay because I wanted just to make sure, like, everything looked good, um and so with my daughter and the vaginal delivery, I think 6 weeks I started to, like, slowly get back into strength training. At that point, with her, we hadn't gotten the Peloton bike yet, so it was more just, like, body weight movements and just kind of starting to get that back together. I got the Peloton bike, I wanna say a month and a half postpartum, so, like, just after that 6 weeks, but, really the body weight, I think, helped way more with that in the beginning. Um, the runs the first time I ran postpartum with her felt weird. I felt like nothing was where it was supposed to be, like, it just felt really strange. Um, and so I really started to go off, like, how my body felt. I think probably I would say 3.5 to 4 months postpartum with her is when I really started to feel like, okay, like, I can go a little bit faster on the bike, like, I can pick up some heavier weights, like, that's when it really started to feel, more normal, and then with my son and the C-section, I took it a little bit easier going back into it. Like I did a bodyweight strength workout as my first workout back, but like very much as low effort as it could get. And then I really started like I did a lot of the low impact cardio classes on Peloton when I was pregnant with him. So I started to do those again and just kind of like how I ended my pregnancy with him is how I started working back after my C-section. Um, and then I think my first run was about 2 months postpartum with him, maybe a little bit earlier, and I really didn't know what that was going to look like. I had already had my mindset that I was going to do the half marathon in October, and so I was like, "We gotta start doing some sort of running, some sort of training, see how this feels." But I am fortunate that I have a great relationship with my former CrossFit coach, and so I was texting him and I was like, what does this look like? Like, how should I know when I'm ready to run again? Like, what should I be looking for? And he was like, you'll kind of know like how it feels. Like, just, walk first and then like see how the run feels. And so I was going to wait until I was like a little bit further along, but I was like itching to get back out there. And so I said to my husband, I was like, I'm just going to go on a walk and like I'll be back in a little bit. And so I went on a walk and like started to kind of run. And then I was like, okay, like this feels good. And so I was able to do a mile. It was a slow mile, but I was like, okay, like that felt pretty good. Um, and honestly, I would say that running post C-section for me was easier than running post vaginal birth with my daughter, just because I felt like recovery wise, the pain with the C-section was a little bit more controlled. Like I knew if I took the pain meds, it was going to help. I was doing the scar massaging, like all of the things. Whereas you could take the pain meds, of course, after my birth with my daughter vaginally, but it didn't help as much as it did, like, when I compare the 2, the pain meds helped more with, like, the immediate scar feeling than it did vaginally. Like, I think that just needed to recover on its own, and so the difference is there. It was easier in some ways to get back to running and working out post C-section, which is not at all what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I'm super surprised that you say it actually. Um, but I can see that also it being your first. Like that is a huge difference cuz
Mhm.
it's like a marathon. You don't really know what to expect and and then once you do it once at least you'll know what to expect. Everything could be completely different but the expectation. So I bet that you were just a little bit more maybe prepared even mentally like, oh, things could feel off and then when they didn't feel as off, it was probably super refreshing actually. Do you feel like were you were you so ready to run and get back into working out and like for mental health the mental health side of postpartum or were you pretty chill about everything or were you like hankering for a workout?
I was itching for it. I have noticed it on myself, like, I work out normally in the mornings just with the kids and the schedule, like, it's just easier for me to get up and get it done first thing because I know it will get done. Um, and so the 6 weeks that I really couldn't do anything were hard, because working out is such a big part of my life that having to take that step back and, like, just relax and, like, of course, I was so happy to be in that newborn bubble and, like, soaking that in. But even the recovery with with my second, and I'm sure that you both can relate to this, like, maternity leave postpartum with your first feels a lot different than it does with your second. Like, my daughter was almost turning 2, and so there wasn't, like, binging Netflix all day like there was when we were on maternity leave with her. Like, she was ready to go, she was in dance, she's doing all the things, so, like, I felt like things returned to normal faster with my second than it did with my first, and so the normalcy of working out and having that as part of my day was like, "Okay, we need to just kind of, like, get back into this." And so I was ready for it. I mean, I did a lot of walking. He was born in May, so, like, going into the summer, like, a lot of walks those first couple of weeks, but once I got the clearance to do the regular workouts and kinda start back into that at that 6-week point, I was, like, itching to get back to doing something.
I bet. Do you have familial support or what does your support system look like? Um, especially when you have a second one, because when you have a
Mhm,
first, you don't need anybody to watch the baby or the
mhm.
toddler. And so what does that look like for you, especially postpartum?
Yes. So we moved actually it's almost been a year that we moved to a new town and we are right down the street from my parents. And my mom watches both kids during the work week when my husband and I are at work. So we're very, very lucky that we are so close. I have cousins who are close by. My grandparents are close by. Friends, just we have a very big village that we're very lucky to have. And so that's just really been helpful, like, especially in those first couple of weeks postpartum, just being able to have, like, my daughter go with my mom for a little bit so we could be with, the baby and just what that kind of looked like. We're lucky that we had that immediate support, and I think that also played a big role going into training for the half marathon, being able to have the support close by so that if, we were up at night with the baby and that morning workout didn't happen, being able to lean on some support from our family close by to be able to do it a little bit later in the afternoon. That was a huge, huge help.
I love that you have that community too. Like, I think it's funny because I feel like social media like likes to knock moms when they have win moments like that, and I hate that. Like, whether it's you being a stay-at-home mom and you have the flexibility to be able to be home with your kids because financially your husband makes enough, or whether it's you're both working parents and you have a community behind you to make it all happen. I just think like moms hardly ever get a win moment as being a parent. And so I'm just so happy that you have like all this camaraderie around you and it's family and it's friends and that you're kind of able to like bounce off each other and, reciprocate back and forth. And I'm sure it takes a sacrifice to the fact that you have to live in that area to have that support, right? Like the idea of probably having to move away if you ever had to would be pretty hard. And so anyways, I'm happy. I'm so happy that you have the support, especially going through a C-section and just all the uncertainties behind that. Like I think that's already a lot. That's a lot to go through as a mom, even with your second kid. So
Yeah, and even with like certain parts of the C-section recovery, like you can't really lift for those
yeah,
first 6 weeks. And so having an
and you have a
almost
toddler.
2-year-old was like I couldn't lift her out of like her crib when she took naps, like all of those things. And so being able to like lean on my mom, like, hey, can you come over? Like she just woke up from her nap, like I can't get her out. Like as much as that was like so hard to not do that. Like that just in itself, like I didn't prepare for what that was going to look like. So that alone was like, how lucky are we that we live where we are? We have the family support that we do. Like that was a huge, huge help with the recovery.
Well, being somebody that used to cross train like most of your pregnancy, I can't imagine how hard that was to be like, Mom, I need your help lifting my kid out of her crib. Like,
Yeah.
I think the prideful side of me would be like, am I okay? But
I
like,
would be there with a screwdriver taking that side off and be like, walk out.
Yes. Yeah.
We will hold hands. I'm doing this. Well,
Yeah.
I'm like, how would I even
Yeah.
do it? Oh, I would just take the whole thing apart.
Mhm.
It's
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's a lot, like, and that's why I think C-sections are so different from vaginal. Like, I'm so glad that your recovery process felt easier, and I think it just comes with the fact that that mom grit kicks in, and you're like, "Oh, I did this one time, I can do this again with a different."
Yeah.
I really truly do believe that that's what it was, 'cause we hear a lot of C-section stories, and it's like, it's brutal. It's a brutal recovery. And the fact that you found the positivity, the silver linings in that postpartum return is very impressive. But yeah, like I see you as like such an active person your whole entire life, from your cheer to your cross training and to your running scene. And it's like I can't imagine how much that ate inside of you. Did that mess with any like postpartum feelings? Like, did you have any postpartum depression through either of your kids? Because it sounds like you really started diving into running just this past year and a half, right? Is that correct?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's a good amount of time, like where you kind of like from 2020 to then, where it was like kind of very sporadic for you. And now it sounds like it's a lot more consistent to where it used to be. And then some because you're training for a marathon. But what like postpartum wise did you deal with any like mental health um situations going through all that, especially being on meds and things like that? It can just like hormones put everything crazy. So
Yeah. I would say with my daughter, when people talk about like the nighttime, like when the sun goes down, like just getting like those overwhelming feelings of like sadness, that hit me like a train with her. I don't think I prepared myself enough for what that was going to look like because you don't know what you don't know with your first. Like I had read about it and like had friends who had gone through it, but like I don't think that people aren't going to really start with that. Like when you talk about like having kids, like they're not going to say like, yeah, when the sun goes down, like the sunset scaries are real. But it is true. And like I honestly wish people did talk about it more because I think it would help moms just kind of prep for what that would look like. And of course, it looks different for everyone. Like some people don't have that, some moms have it on different levels. But I think that was hard in the beginning. Like I remember just like crying out of nowhere those first couple of weeks and just being like, I looked at my husband and I'm like, I don't know why I'm crying. I don't know what's going on here. Like this is weird. And so that was really like the thick of it for me those first couple of weeks and just like adjusting to being parents and like all that came along with that. Um, and I think that's why with both pregnancies, but even with my daughter's birth, like, I wanted to get back into working out when I could because I knew that just being able to have, like, 30 minutes or however long would start to regulate that a little bit for me and just, like, give me a little part of the day that made me feel like myself. Because I think a lot of moms struggle with that. Like, how do you return to feeling like yourself in this new era when like everything is different? Um, and I know that there's a lot of guilt around that, like, going out to go for a run or like having to step away to do a workout. But I do think like that really has helped so much with both recoveries and getting back to feeling like myself again. And I think that's why I leaned so heavily into running this postpartum, just being able to know that, like, I knew it was okay. Like, my daughter had just turned almost 2. Like, it's okay if I step away for a couple of minutes or a little bit of time to do a workout. Like, it's fine. Especially now, like, working out at home for the most part, we invested in a treadmill, which is my background right now. But that like, just being able to like come downstairs, like get a workout in has really like that helped so much. Just like making myself feel like, okay, this time of the day like is for me. And that's why I feel like I have to start my day with it because it sets me up for the day. But yeah, I mean, running was so sporadic the past couple of years, like no training involved with any of the half marathons I did, like just going for it and like it felt great, but now knowing what I know and having just followed a training plan for the half that I did, like it just has given me a new appreciation and love for running and the sport that it is. But I do think that played such a huge role in just like getting back to that little piece of me that always was kind of like nagging in the back, like, we love running, like let's give it a shot. And so I'm glad that it came back up when it did.
I love that. Do you feel like running now that you're a mom and your previous running, do you feel like there's a different purpose behind it too?
Yeah, I would say crossing the finish line of the half marathon in October and PRing that time and like my kids being there, like that feeling was so unmatched to anything. And just like being able to go and train and if my daughter was like, like, mommy, where are you going? Like being able to say to her, like, oh, I'm going for a run because I'm like training for a half marathon was showing her, I think, in a way like it's okay to do these things. Like it's good to set goals and whatnot. Like even this morning after I finished like 6 miles, she had just woken up and I was like, oh, mom, like mommy just ran 6 miles. And she was like, oh, that's so cool. And I was like, oh my God, like don't say that. Like I'm gonna start crying. But I think just being able to show that to them, like my son is only 8 months, so he doesn't really know it yet, but being able to go out with them, we invested in a jogging stroller, so we've gone on a couple of family runs together. Like, it just has taken on a new purpose of I know that running makes me a better mom and a better person all around. And so I really lean heavily into that and being able to have my kids hopefully look up to that and want to do something like that and to see that like working out and running really can do so much for you, I think is way more than just signing up for a half marathon like I was doing pre-kids and just like going out there and doing it. Like it was great for the PRs and the miles that I did, but this kind of added a new layer to it in the best way.
I love that. It does there is, like, so much more purpose behind it, and every mile does feel more meaningful, and riding in the stroller, like, they'll always have joined you for that, and, like, they know that even when it is hard, that they don't have to shy away from it because like, their mom wouldn't shy away from it, right? Like and that is so cool. It's such a neat thing because you are even though you're out on the race individually doing it for yourself, like, they are such a part of that, and that you're able to experience that, and that you have the previous experience when you weren't doing it with kids, because it makes it so much more special too.
Yeah, and it's crazy even like when I'm doing strength training, like my daughter now will just like come downstairs and, like, if I'm doing squats, like, she'll start doing squats with me or, like,
So
she'll do,
cute.
like, yoga poses, and she's like, "Mommy, look at me," and, like, to be able to see that, like, literally coming to fruition is, like, it's just so cool to see, like, that she's modeling what my husband and I are doing and, like, for it to be what that is, like, working out and taking care of yourself, I think, it's definitely something that we hold super special.
I love
Especially strength training. Like, I
Yeah.
don't have any memories of my mom lifting weights. I have
Yeah.
plenty of my dad was a power lifter, so I have plenty of him lifting insane amounts of weights, but I always thought that was a dude thing. And so even going through high school as like a competitive runner, I body weight was everything that I did and maybe 10-pound weights. Like, and so going into adulthood, you realize the impact and importance of longevity and overall well-being and health for your bones is through strength training. And so I just think it's so cool that like your daughter has this like persona, this image of womanhood, and it's you cross training and CrossFit and like lifting weights and just like movement in general. Like that's such a healthy outlook for her to see as a female. And I just think, like, that's something I don't think about a lot with, like, my girls. I think about it a lot with my boys because 'cause I'm like, "Oh, I'm faster than your dad." But, um, it's more like a bragging, right? Like, "Oh, yeah, can I beat your friends' parents?" You know? But it's like with my girls, like, running with a baby girl, it's like, "Oh my gosh," like, I get to share these memories with a female, another girl, and shape her future of like what she sees within herself and her capability. And that there doesn't have to be like a defining line of like feminism and masculinity, like that, like we all need strength training. We all need to be healthy. We all need to be focusing on bone density and all that stuff. And that it's not just for like men only. So
Yeah. I love that. I love that.
Well, if there was a mom listening and she was to reach out to you, what kind of encouragement or what would you advise like that is like a C-section mom or like she knows she's going to have a C-section, what kind of advice would you give her?
Yeah. I mean, I would say something that I did, and something that one of my friends actually sent me was the like Freedom Mom ice packs. Putting them on my scar helped a lot. And so leaning into that, um, if you are taking the pain med, just staying on top of them, like, as you said earlier, like, it's okay to be on them as your body needs them, and your body will kind of tell you, like, when it's time to come off as you continue to recover, but they're there for a reason and to help you, so just kind of leaning into that, um, being okay with having help. I know that that's something, like we had said, like, I had a hard time not being able to lift my daughter, like, not being able to do certain things because I was in bed or on the couch or just moving slower, and I'm not someone that can easily ask for help, so leaning into that, like, ask for help, like, people want to help you, it's okay, um, but also just knowing that it is a very, like, big surgery that you're going through, and I think sometimes it doesn't always feel that way because it's just like, "Okay, it's a C-section," but, like, I think the stat is that it's, like, the most common surgery that happens at hospitals and stuff, just, like, things you don't know until you start looking at it, and so to be easy with yourself. Like, give yourself grace. Everyone's recovery will look different. Different things will hurt, and different things will feel like your body will feel weird. I remember driving home from the hospital and like we went over a bump, and I was like, my stomach feels like it just like flipped over. But someone had said to me, like, bring a pillow with you, put it on your stomach, and put it between you and the seatbelt, and like that helped a ton. So it's just like little things like that. But I think as much as you can go into it with a positive mindset, like, yes, it is a surgery, it's scary, but I am so grateful for my experience. Like, I feel so lucky that I have been able to experience both types of birth, and to be able to say that and to really see both sides of it. But I think I'm just grateful for the doctors and for everyone that helped with my recovery and what that looked like. And just giving yourself grace that things are going to look different for a little bit, even after you're cleared for working out, like that's going to look different. And who you are as an athlete post C-section, post delivery of any kind will look different than you were before. But the postpartum me that I am now would like kick my 20-20-year-old's butt. So I'm happy to be here. And so I think just going into it with as much of that mindset as you can will help significantly.
I love it. That's great advice.
Yeah, I love that you highlight that too, because it's
Mhm.
like pre-baby era, mom era. It's like you're fueling the fire to something way different. It's so cool.
Mhm.
I love that. I love that you recognize that in yourself too, that you're like, you know what? I'm a badass at this point. So,
I know. Can you imagine
uh,
your 2020 self seeing you train for a marathon
yeah.
as a mom of 2? I mean, that's
No. Yeah,
yeah.
it is. It's crazy to think about. But I feel like you have to tap into that because it just like really fuels a fire even more. Like to
Mhm.
see how much progress you've made, it just helps to really like when you don't want to do the run or just like feels hard, like being able to see the progress is so helpful.
Yeah,
Agree.
otherwise it feels daunting, right? Like you see your vision of like long term and then you have to like break up these little pieces to get you to that long-term goal. And if you don't recognize how far you've come, it can feel daunting. It can feel like defeating in a lot of ways because you're like, well, I still have so much more. Especially like you're at the beginning of that build, right? And you're seeing those future runs to come, but like as long as you continue to keep showing up and even imperfectly, as long as you continue to keep showing up, like your body will adjust. It's amazing how well the body adapts over time. And then all of a sudden you're like, how did I just do that? Like, that is so. I remember like 7 weeks ago, I was looking at this week and I was like, there's no way I can do that. And here I am. I just finished it, and now I'm going to go
Mhm.
parent after.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I'm just so excited for you to experience that. I guess going into this question, looking ahead, what does the future look like for you? Because we kind of mentioned about your marathon. What marathon are you running, and what kind of like goals are on your horizon for 2026?
Yeah, so tentatively it's the Maine Coast Marathon. So I am part of the run club at the company that I work for, and so they're doing like a destination race outside of Connecticut. So tentatively, that's the one that we're doing. But even if that doesn't pan out, my husband and I are actually running the New York City Marathon in November. We got in with Team for Kids, which is one of the organizations that you can fundraise for. So they opened their applications. It's typically a year before the race, so it was in November. And we applied and we had to kind of put everything in, and we found out like the next day that we had both gotten accepted. So we
So
are actively raising funds for it. But yeah, I was like, okay, like this could be my first marathon. Like if I do the main one, I'm just itching to do the distance. I think that's why I'm like, I want to do this race. I'm just like so anxious to try that distance. But if it doesn't pan out, then New York will probably be my first marathon, which feels a little bit intimidating just knowing what New York is and what that race is. But um, those are kind of the two big ones that are on the horizon. I will probably do the Hartford Half Marathon again in October. That's what I ran last year. And that's just a great race in Connecticut. So we'll probably do that. But the two big ones are Maine and then New York as well.
that's so cool. That's amazing.
That's
Um,
epic. Yeah.
okay, so that's I was wondering what your fundraiser was for in your bio. That makes sense. But that would
Yes.
be an epic first marathon. Whatever company you work for, kudos to them for having a run club. I was
I
like, wait a
know.
second, I don't know
Yeah.
anyone that does that. That's super cool. And then you also mentioned Hartford, Connecticut, and I love Gilmore Girls, so like all I thought of
Yes, that's what I thought about too.
was like, what?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's very cool. So exciting though on all fronts.
Yeah. Your
Yeah,
husband's gonna
very
be running these
excited.
with you?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
good.
So, Maine is they do like a half marathon and a marathon on Saturday and Sunday. So he may do the half marathon for that race, but then we're doing New York together, which I'm really excited for.
That's so
Yeah,
cool.
that's
I'm so
awesome.
excited for you guys. Yeah.
Epic. Oh my gosh. Wow. Well, is there anything that you want to leave our listeners with?
I mean, I think just being in this group and this community, like finding this podcast when I was getting back into running was like such a saving grace. And even this morning, I was watching your most recent episode and I was doing my 6 miles, and I was just like, this is so cool to be a part of, and I think no matter what your story is, no matter what your birth was like, it's just this common thread of running and momhood is so tight to be part of. It's so cool to kind of see and to hear from all the moms that you guys have had on is like so inspirational to see on social media and everything. Like it really, I think, has helped so much. And I think just leaning into that, like I had kind of said with the recovery piece, like leaning into your new era, no matter what that looks like at the end of the day, no matter how fast or how slow you're going, like you are a mother runner and like that is so cool and so something to be proud of. So I think just really just leaning into what that looks like is just the coolest thing. So yeah.
I love that. And we really appreciate you sharing your story. And we really haven't had any C-section moms on here also to talk about that specifically. And I really think you took a lot of the scary stuff out of it. I think it can be a very daunting procedure in itself. And then also that adding the running component back onto it, like, especially because we look for identity so much in running. And a lot of times we don't know that we need it so badly after our first, and so that you were able to have one of each and that you kind of knew that you would need running again, and easing back into it and sharing that story now with us has been so nice, so enlightening. I think it was really refreshing to hear.
Yeah, no, I appreciate the opportunity to kind of bring that positive light to the C-sections because I think when you find out, if you know ahead of time that you're having one, like going to Google, oh my God, this AirPod, and being able to
That too.
I do the
being
same thing.
able God, I'm like, why are you not staying in my ears? Um, just like the opportunity to be able to share a positive story because I was searching all over the web, like positive C-section stories, like just anything. So after having the experience that I did, like just being able to share that to people, and especially on this platform, being able to show that like coming back and running, I had the PR that I had in October was so massive for what I was anticipating, and to be able to do that postpartum after a C-section was not something that I anticipated, and so I feel so lucky that I've had the opportunity to talk about this on here because I hope that it helps someone when they're starting to go through this process that everything will work out and you will be able to return to running and C-sections are not as scary as it may initially sound.
Yeah.
I love
Well,
that.
it's going to be cool because now you're going to be a story that other moms are going to hear or listen to, and they're going to feel that same inspiration that you felt listening to the episode the other day, And I think that's the beautiful part. Like Olivia talks about this all the time that like it doesn't matter about age, it's the common thread of motherhood. And I love that she always highlights that on a lot of our episodes because it's true. Like we interview people we just interviewed one that's 60 years old and ran her first marathon. And we just interviewed a girl the other day who's in her 20s running collegiately. And it like the range is so all over the place and everybody's story in between of how long they got to run and how long they had to step away from running. And, the recovery rate, like they're so various and so different for each one, but yet we all can have that relatability because of motherhood.
Mhm.
And I love that. I love that this community has brought stories out to just find that one person that you can relate to in little ways and build this sense of like I don't know, connection with somebody because it can feel a little lonely sometimes too out there. Like, am I the only one that's waking up at 5 a.m.? Am I the only one with uninterrupted sleep? I see all these people talking about you need 8 to 9 hours of sleep, and that's not happening. Like, there's just so many things that you feel like you're failing at as a mom. And just to be around other moms, you're like, oh, wait, no, I'm not. Like, that's just normal. Like, other moms are doing this grind too with me. So,
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, Kaylee, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone that's listening. We do appreciate if you can rate, subscribe, share our podcast. And if you have a mom that you want to shout out, please feel free to slide into our DMs. And yeah, we love it. We are just so impressed by this whole community. And yeah, Kaylee, thank you so much. This has been
Thank
so
you.
wonderful. All right, guys. Bye.
bye.
Bye.